Alright, so this is analysis for the week of Thanksgiving. So it is 11:24 at about 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So this is about a day later than I usually do my analysis. I usually do it on Sunday after the market opens so that all my pivots and indicators update. So we're going to start with pound New Zealand dollar because that's what's first up of my charts. I'm just going to do them in order. If you are new to 5-minute testing, well, let's just say I don't recommend pound New Zealand dollar for the faint of heart. It is quite difficult to trade on 5-minute testing and can be pretty difficult on 1 hour as well. But we're going to start with the analysis here. So using the stuff I've added, we can see that mostly we're downtrend. The Dynafibs agree. We're on the 4-hour chart right now. And I'm going to add some fib levels. We're going to do that with all the pairs. So because we closed 80 pips higher last week, fibbing last week for the downtrend isn't really feasible. We can take the week before. And I'm actually going to change this color because this is the color that I use for longer term fibs. So let's go up to the daily because I had this fibbed before I made my new templates. So I'm going to fib the last leg here, last major up move on the daily. And we'll look at that. We'll go back to the 4-hour. All right, so what I was talking about before, you see here, we closed up last week, but we are currently moving down. And we'll also draw trend lines if necessary on these charts. So let's change this because yellow is usually what I use there. And this gives us more levels to trade against. So if we look, I fibbed the daily, the big leg, and you can see where here the 61.8 came into play and it corresponded with a midterm fib. And then here we attempted to move below the 78.6 and came back up, which is a pretty major area. So here we have on the more recent fib, we're coming up to 50%, and we've broken above the daily 200, but we're still looking for a downside, and daily 55 has been more in control on this pair. And you can see up here where the 61.8 is, this gives us a lot of confluence. We'll have pushed into the Dynafibs. We'll be hitting the daily 55 and the 4-hour 200. We have the 50% fib on our longer term move right here. We have WR2 and we have a midterm fib. So all in this area here is a good place to look for a PFT setup. I will look for price to push into that area on a 1-hour, and then I will look for a 5-minute down move. Okay, let's go to pound CAD. All right, so again, downtrend, closed 113 pips lower. Let's fib this. So we can fib last week, even though it doesn't really look like it. You can see we already had a good move back up on Monday, and we have hit this 55, and we've started to reject it. We'll see what happens there. We're still consolidating. This also corresponds with 78.6, and WR1. And you can see we have a midterm fib, which price has touched. Right. The other option for fibbing this, since we had such a big move on Monday, is to take the last 2 weeks. So you can see here, we get the 50% fib is corresponding with a midterm fib, a pivot, and then 61.8 is where the bullish dynafib is. And you'll have the EMAs will come down a little bit closer if we were to get up there. So I would move my fib back there if we were to break during the London session above this 55. Let's look at this on 1 hour. Sorry, my charts are a little slow right now. I am currently uploading a video and rendering a separate video. So on the 1 hour, you can see where price rejected pretty hard there, and we moved up a little bit, but it wasn't a strong attempt because it's not a great time for trading. So during London session, I would expect to move back up into here, and then we'll look for a 5-minute signal back down. So if we check it out on the 5-minute, you can really see where we are consolidating there. So what I'm hoping to see is price continue to bounce, pull back up, and then give me a 5-minute signal that breaks below the 61.8, below this midterm fib, comes out of the dynafibs, and then gives me a corresponding signal on Momentum Master. So pretty classic PFT setup. So that's how you can basically pre-identify charts for where you're going to be looking at setups. I know we have the Navigator now. I've been meaning to do this for quite a while, share it with you guys. But this can still help narrow down, and I'll be watching Navigator as well. All right, so pound odd, we finished up 125 pips, and we are currently above the 200s, but the 34 and the 55 haven't crossed yet, so we're pretty mixed here. And let's take a look at the daily. So the daily isn't providing us too much here. We have some pretty big areas. We can fib here. Go back to the 4 hour. So this kind of lends us to where price is mixed. As you can see, we're at the 50%, but we have loads of stuff below it. Let's take a look at the 1 hour. We've already made a pretty significant move up on Monday. We've got some super convergence zones. So this pair, I would definitely check your correlations on to see which direction the Aussie is going. I don't want to get down to the 5-minute. So in order to trade this pair, I would like to see break up of this super convergence zone. And we may not get above 61.8, which would be okay. But if we had a break above here, the super convergence zone, the midterm fib, and the monthly pivot, if we broke up and then came back down to the midterm fib to that area, I would look for a 5-minute signal to long. All right, let's look at pound JPY. So since USD JPY is in such a strong uptrend, we're continuing there, but you have to be careful with what the pound US dollar is doing as well. So make sure you're looking at your correlated pairs there. Make sure this fib's in the right place. All right, so we're clearly in an uptrend. We're pulling back a little bit now from the top area. We go down to the 1 hour. We may continue to push up, but I would be a little bit concerned that the move would be limited and we hit the top area again. However, we do have this midterm fib at the bearish Dynafib, so I would be looking for price to push into that. So push into here, move back up. Let's look at the 5-minute. So on the 5-minute, you can see that we have some additional fib levels. So we're talking about bouncing off here. So we could even push into here, down to the 38.2, come back up, stops down here, and we have first profit take, second profit take, and I believe that's the top. E603. If we were to break all this, we could continue to run for quite a bit. Look for price to stall here or the next midterm fib on the 5-minute. All right, pound US dollar, another downtrend, although we only closed minus 20 last week. And we have been moving down for quite a while. So we have a pretty decent downtrend line. But so if we fib last week, let's go to the 4 hour. this gives us a pretty strong area to trade. However, I'm going to be a little cautious with this pair. Let's see if I can get a fib. I can't get a fib. I don't want to look at this on the weekly. So we may see a bigger pullback on this pair. If we do, we can fit the daily. And of course, we probably won't see a big pullback on this pair because it's Thanksgiving week, but it's Forex, you never know. And on the daily, we may push all the way back up here, and our fib corresponds a little bit better there. But we'll see what happens. It is 5 minute, so for now, we'll fib. The last 2 weeks. Euro New Zealand dollar, another pair that we've had pretty good movement on already. Again, just like the pound, downtrend, although I believe this one looks a bit better. You can see here we have some important stuff below, right where we're at and above. Whereas on the euro, we do have the 55, but we have a load of stuff right here, which is also where the 4-hour bullish Dynafib is. So that would be a good price, a good area for price to fail in its move upward. You can see that that all corresponds with 78.6 there. If we fib last week, the high to the low. All right, EuroCAD, big down move last week. Closed 240 pips lower. Again, nice convergence there to trade from. Euro-AUD, I believe, it's been ranging pretty well. We tried to break it a couple times. We have this move up here, but for the most part, we're in this range. And you can see where price has just been moving up and down through the EMAs, which usually happens when we're in a range. You can see on the 4-hour better how none of this is really respected. It's an area where price is consolidating. So we can trade this up and down, you know. Now it's 5 minutes, so we can always take signals in here if if they're strong, but we're more likely to range, or to not to range, but to whipsaw in this area. Whereas if we pushed up here, or we pushed down to this area, and then we got a reversal, and we got a 5-minute signal along with that, it gives me more confidence in the trade, and it potentially has a much better risk-reward ratio because we can try and catch price moving all the way back up the range. All right, Euro JPY. We closed down last week. We are up above. Let's see, we're pretty well extended on this pair too. We came up to MR3. We're coming down. We're still above monthly resistance 2. Let's fib the last 2 weeks. So we have an option here. You can see we've already moved off, but we didn't have a lot of movement to the upside. So depending on what London session does today, if we continue the downward movement, we can trade that down, which would be counter trend, and change this fib. Fib at the beginning of the month. I don't like the way that looks either. We'll leave it there. So potentially if we continue down, we break through here, we should see price react at this level. We have both the Dynafibs, WS1 and 68 point, or I'm sorry, midterm fib. But we could bounce up here, see a limited move, and then fall back down to the 200. So I will probably be a little careful with this pair. It's also going to depend on what the other JPY pairs are looking like. So we'll take a look at my other set. So we're still down on Australian New Zealand dollar. Didn't close down too much last week. And I have not adjusted fibs on this one. So I'm not using extensions. So again, it's a little bit hard to see, but 61.8 fib lines up perfectly with this midterm fib and with a weekly pivot. So we could see a move back down there. Let's look at the daily. The daily, you can see we've come into a pretty major level. So being holiday week, we're probably not going to see much great trading, but potentially we have a bigger pullback on this pair. Especially considering we have low, low. Price tried to move up. Couldn't get above that top, which is even the weekly high. We have another low here. And price is moving up currently pretty well with that 4-hour candle. We could move down again and not break the low and start to see some bigger pullbacks. Maybe we will see some wild movement this week, or maybe we do in for big pullbacks on a lot of these pairs that have been trending one direction. So if we take this to the daily, you can see where we haven't pulled back much at all from the last daily move. Potentially we can also trade this as a range. So all JPY uptrend, but we went almost nowhere last week. Closed 5 pips down. Fib the last 2 weeks, and it looks like I need to add. Yep. The 78.6. So again, we're in the process of pulling back on the JPY pairs, it looks like, and we could see a pretty big, oh, video's done. We could see a pretty big move down on those pairs. All right, so we've already made a move down on all USD today. And you can see where that worked out nicely. I don't know if it corresponded with a 5-minute signal, but if you happen to be looking at 4 hours, it's very nice. We pushed in here. We had a nice pin bar. Moved down and continued. So it looks like anything that we'd be seeing here on the long side, it's going to be a counter trend. We may be able to get a continuation below the low or another pullback. So last week we had a good move down already. We've broken below a bunch of stuff that's in the way. I don't really need the fib for this pair. we broke through all this stuff, pulled back into it a little bit, and now we're having a good push down. So on a 5-minute signal, I would like to see a continuation of the down move, probably after we move back up a little bit. So another JPY pair. I'm going to do the last 2 weeks. So if you don't want to trade counter trend, you should be looking for 5-minute signals in that general area. This pair tried to make a nice break to the upside. You can see clear resistance there. We're breaking that back down below the EMAs. And we're currently pushing into this midterm fib in WS1. So this is where some of the extra confluence helps us. On a 5-minute signal, we could see a long right off here on 5-minute. But I would prefer if we pushed again into this area where the EMAs are, and we would have pushed through this already. So push up through this line, look for price to stall out in this area, and move back down. And since we have more confluence here, we could trade into this midterm fib, because we have pretty good potential to break it. We go all the way down to the next midterm fib. Let's look at that on the 1 hour. So you can see all the super convergence zones that have formed around this area. We even have one there as well. But I would still be looking for a down move, especially if we get a move that pushes back up above the monthly pivot into that area and then comes back down here. I would still take that 5-minute signal. USD CAD, we closed down, but the trend is maybe up. Signals up. So a little bit choppy. Oh, that was not that good. So we have that to contend with on USD CAD, and that's on the daily, but it could provide us some quite large trades, even on the 5-minute. Let's see what we have. So you can see we have a pretty big mess inside this triangle. So definite caution. Now what we can do, since we're trading 5 minute, is we can actually trade bounces off the triangle. Like that one. Let's see. So we currently have 120 pips inside the triangle. So maybe one more possible trade off of it if we don't break, but at that point it's getting a little bit too close to the point for comfort, even with 5 minute signals, at least for me. All right, USD JPY, we closed 90 pips up last week. Currently moving back down. So again, I'm going to take the last 2 weeks, and like with the rest of the JPY pairs, if we get below this level where we have the midterm fib 61.8, weekly support 1, and we'll have the 4-hour Dynafibs, we could be in for much larger pullbacks. So caution there around that price level. Euro USD I have on my charts, but I haven't traded it on 5 minutes, so I'm not going to go into it. But you can see where doing longer term, it's not longer, really long term, it's 4 hour, but doing a weekly analysis can help you identify key levels to look at for 5 minute signals to form around. Let's look at CAD again. So I think that's going to give us our best potential 5 minute setup currently going into London session. And I'll be looking for the Australian pairs or crosses, pound odd, and to continue its way up, and possibly Euro as well. Maybe not. And of course, on USD, we want to see a continuation down. But so that's what I look at to start the week, and then I try and take 5 minute signals and make sure that I'm not going to be trading them into any of those key levels that we just defined. That's really where it helps. The analysis gives you more structure to look at along with those indicators, and it gives you areas where you can get a 5 minute signal that looks good because we're pushing into one of those areas and then turn around and lose. So it just helps with better setups. So I'm going to be trading London session today. Hopefully I'll be able to document some live trades for you guys, and I will also be recapping some of my previous trades and showing those off in another video, what I'm looking for when we actually trade 5 minute. All right guys, I will see you in the forums.